A black single dad walked into a luxury hotel just before midnight carrying his 8-year-old daughter asleep on his shoulder, her small hand still clutching a worn teddy bear. He asked for one room, but the front desk manager looked him over, loudly claimed there was no availability, then checked in another walk-in couple less than 3 minutes later as everyone in the lobby watched. When he calmly asked for the manager's name instead of arguing, security was called to remove him, until the general manager stepped out of the executive elevator, looked straight at him, and quietly said, "Boss." Marcus Johnson stepped through the revolving glass doors of the luxury hotel just after 11 at night, the humid Charlotte air giving way to cool marble floors and soft golden lighting. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished stone, and quiet piano music drifted through the nearly empty lobby. Every detail spoke of comfort, wealth, and effortless hospitality. None of it mattered to Marcus. His attention stayed on the little girl sleeping against his shoulder. Zoe's small arms were wrapped loosely around a faded stuffed bear whose fur had long ago been worn smooth by years of hugs. Her cheek rested against the grey hood of Marcus's sweatshirt. She had fallen asleep almost 30 minutes earlier in the car, exhausted after a day that had stretched far longer than either of them had planned. Marcus adjusted her weight carefully without waking her. He crossed the lobby at an unhurried pace. His jeans showed dust from the highway, and his sneakers carried the marks of a long drive. There was nothing remarkable about the way he looked. Just another tired father trying to find a safe place for his daughter to sleep. Behind the reception desk stood a young employee wearing a perfectly pressed navy suit and an immaculate name tag. Derek. Marcus offered a polite smile. "Good evening. I'd like one standard room for tonight, please." Before touching the keyboard, Derek looked Marcus up and down, not quickly, not casually, deliberately. His eyes paused on the hoodie, the faded jeans, the sleeping child, the worn stuffed bear. Only then did he answer. "I'm sorry, sir." His tone remained professionally pleasant. "This isn't really the kind of hotel people just walk into without a reservation." Marcus blinked once. "I only need one room." "I'm afraid we're fully booked." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand." He didn't argue. He didn't ask for exceptions. He simply watched Derek's face for another second, as though committing every word to memory. Silence settled between them. A moment later, the revolving doors turned again. A well-dressed white couple entered laughing softly, each carrying a small overnight bag. The woman approached the desk. "Hi, we don't have a reservation. Do you happen to have anything available?" Derek's entire expression changed. His smile widened instantly. "Absolutely." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "We've got several deluxe king rooms available tonight." Marcus remained exactly where he stood. He said nothing. Within less than 2 minutes, Derek programmed 2 key cards. "You're all set. Elevators are to your left. Enjoy your stay." The couple thanked him warmly before walking toward the elevators. The silver key cards caught the lobby lights as they disappeared. Marcus's eyes followed them only briefly. Then he looked back at Derek, but there was no anger in his face, only quiet certainty. Against his shoulder, Zoe stirred, her eyes open just enough to find her father. "Daddy?" Her sleepy voice barely rose above a whisper. "Are we at the hotel?" Marcus smiled gently. "We are, sweetheart. Can we go to bed now?" His hand rubbed softly across her back. "Soon." She nodded once, before resting her head against him again, trusting him completely. Marcus turned back toward the desk. His voice remained calm. "I'd like to speak with your manager." For the first time that evening, Derek hesitated. "It's rather late." "I understand. Our manager is busy. I'll wait." There was no challenge in Marcus's tone, no raised voice, no threats, just quiet patience. Derek studied him, perhaps expecting frustration, perhaps hoping Marcus would simply leave. Instead, Marcus stood perfectly still, watching, observing, almost as though the room itself had become evidence. Several guests seated near the fireplace had stopped pretending not to notice. One elderly couple exchanged uncertain glances. A businessman lowered his laptop screen. A bellman shifted awkwardly beside the luggage cart. Everyone had seen the key cards. Everyone had heard the words, "fully booked." No one said anything. The contradiction lingered in the polished silence of the lobby. Marcus never mentioned it. He didn't need to. The facts were already sitting in plain sight. Derek finally reached for the phone behind the counter. "I'll call the manager." Marcus nodded once. "Thank you." He gently adjusted Zoe higher against his shoulder as she slept again, the stuffed bear pressed safely between them. A minute later, footsteps echoed across the marble floor. The hotel manager appeared from the hallway behind the reception area. Before saying a single word, the manager looked directly at Marcus. The expression on his face already suggested he had been told exactly who the problem was. Richard arrived with the smooth, practiced pace of a man who believed authority was something a person could wear. His dark suit was tailored better than Derek's. His silver nameplate caught the chandelier light as he stepped behind the front desk and stopped beside his employee. He did not stand between Marcus and Derek by accident. He placed himself there deliberately, shoulder aligned with Derek's, the desk now looking less like a service counter and more like a barrier. "Good evening," Richard said. "I'm the manager on duty. I understand there's an issue." Marcus shifted Zoe slightly higher in his arms before answering, her cheek pressed against his shoulder, her stuffed bear trapped gently between them. "Yes," Marcus said. "I asked for one room. Derek told me the hotel was fully booked. A couple came in after me without a reservation, and he checked them in." Richard did not look at Derek. He did not ask a question. He simply folded his hands in front of him. "Our staff are trained to use professional judgment in real time." Marcus held his gaze. "Professional judgment?" "Yes." "That judgment changed in less than 2 minutes?" Richard's expression cooled. "Sir, I wasn't present for the first interaction." "Then maybe you should review it before deciding." Derek looked down at the keyboard. Richard's jaw tightened just enough for Marcus to notice. "I trust my front desk staff," Richard said, "and I don't appreciate you implying misconduct in my lobby." Several feet away, a woman in a hotel blazer stood near the lounge entrance with a stack of folded menus in her hands. Her name tag read Maya. She had been close enough to hear most of it. Her eyes flicked once toward Derek, then toward Marcus, then down to the floor. Marcus saw it. He did not call her out. He only nodded once. "What's your full name and title?" Richard blinked. "My name?" "Yes." "Richard Hale, Night Operations Manager." "Thank you, Mr. Hale." The calmness unsettled the space more than anger would have. Marcus stepped away from the desk and walked toward the lounge seating, where low chairs surrounded a marble coffee table. He sat carefully, keeping Zoe against his chest so she would not wake. Her tiny hand loosened around the bear, then tightened again in sleep. Richard stayed near the front desk. Watching, Derek pretended to type. Maya remained by the lounge entrance, still holding the menus she no longer seemed to need. The lobby had changed. Guests who had been whispering now paused between glances. The elderly couple by the fireplace sat straighter. The businessman had closed his laptop completely. A woman near the elevator held her room key but did not move. Marcus did nothing except sit quietly with his daughter. After nearly a minute, Richard left the desk and approached him. Sir, you can't occupy the lobby after being denied service. Marcus looked up. I haven't disturbed anyone. You've created a situation. I asked for a room, then I asked for your name. Richard's voice lowered. And now I'm asking you to leave. Marcus glanced down at Zoe before answering. He brushed one thumb lightly across the back of her hoodie, making sure she stayed asleep. Then he looked back at Richard. If you're removing me from the property, call security and make it official. Richard stared at him. The sentence landed heavily. Derek looked up from the desk. Maya's face changed, almost imperceptibly, as if she understood before Richard did. Marcus had not raised his voice. He had not insulted anyone. He had not blocked a doorway or threatened a scene. He had asked them to put their decision on record. Richard's authority, which had seemed so polished moments earlier, suddenly looked like something he had to protect from its own consequences. That won't be necessary, Richard said. Marcus remained seated. Then I can wait here while you review what happened. Richard's mouth flattened. Around them, the lobby had gone quiet enough that the piano music seemed louder than before. Richard turned toward the front desk. Call security. Derek reached for the phone. Maya looked away. Marcus held Zoe closer, his face still calm, still tired, still unreadable. A side door near the elevators opened. 2 security guards stepped into the lobby. The 2 security guards entered from the side door and stopped just inside the lobby. They did not rush. They did not need to. Their uniforms changed the room immediately. One moved to Marcus's left, near the edge of the lounge seating. The other stopped closer to the aisle leading toward the elevators. They were not touching him, not yet, but their position made the message clear. The path around Marcus had narrowed. Zoe stirred against his chest. Her fingers tightened around the stuffed bear. Marcus felt the change in her breathing before she opened her eyes. "Daddy?" Her voice was small and confused. Marcus lowered his chin toward her. "I'm right here." Zoe lifted her head just enough to see the men standing nearby. Her sleepy eyes moved from the guards to Richard, then to Derek behind the front desk. "Why are they standing there?" No one answered. Richard adjusted his jacket. "Mr. Johnson, this is your final opportunity to leave voluntarily." Zoe blinked at him. "Why do we have to leave?" Richard looked past her as if the question had not been asked. "Sir, I need you to gather your things and exit the lobby." Zoe looked at Marcus. "But we just got here." "I know," Marcus said softly. She turned back toward Richard, still half asleep, still clutching the bear under her chin. "Why won't you help us?" The lobby went still. Not quiet. Still, there was a difference. The elderly couple by the fireplace stopped whispering. The businessman near the window lowered his phone from his ear. A woman standing near the elevators let her suitcase handle slide down with a faint metallic click. At the concierge desk, Maya froze with one hand resting on the counter. Zoe's eyes searched Richard's face with the complete seriousness only a tired child could carry. "People who work at hotels are supposed to help tired people," she said. "That's why hotels are here." One of the guards shifted his weight. The movement was small, but Marcus noticed it. So did Maya. Richard's face tightened. "This is an adult matter." "She asked you a question," Marcus said. Richard looked at him sharply. Marcus did not move. He only lowered his voice and spoke to Zoe. "You didn't do anything wrong, baby." Zoe leaned closer into him. "Did I make them mad?" "No."
Then why are they making us leave?" Marcus let the silence answer for a second. Across the lobby, 2 guests lifted their phones, then a third. No one held the cameras high or dramatically. They simply began recording because the room had reached the point where pretending not to see felt worse than being seen watching. Derek swallowed behind the desk. Richard noticed the phones. His tone hardened. "Sir, you are creating a disturbance."
Marcus stood slowly, careful with Zoe's weight, careful not to jolt her. Her stuffed bear pressed between them, one button eye catching the chandelier light. "I'm standing in a lobby holding my daughter," Marcus said. "You were denied service." "Yes." "And you refused to leave." "I asked you to make the removal official." Richard stepped closer. "This hotel reserves the right to refuse service." Marcus nodded once. "I know." That answer seemed to irritate Richard more than argument would have. The uncomfortable guard glanced toward Maya, then away again. Marcus reached into his pocket and took out his phone. Richard's eyes sharpened. "Who are you calling?" Marcus did not answer him. He tapped once, then held the phone to his ear. When the call connected, his voice remained low and controlled. "It's Marcus Johnson." A pause. "I'm in the lobby." Another pause. "Yes, with Zoe." His eyes stayed on Richard. "I need you to come down now." He listened for only a moment. "No, don't call ahead." Then he ended the call. The entire conversation had taken less than 15 seconds. But when Marcus lowered the phone, something about him had changed. Not his posture, not his expression, something underneath. The calm that had already unsettled Richard became heavier, more certain. Zoe rubbed her eyes. "Daddy, do we have to go?" Marcus looked down at her, and for the first time since entering the hotel, his face softened fully. "No," he said, "we're not going anywhere tonight." Richard stared at him. The guards looked at each other. Maya's lips parted slightly, as if she had just understood that the night had moved beyond Richard's control. Then the elevator chimed, everyone turned, the doors opened, and someone important stepped out. Richard's patience ended the moment the elevator chimed. He turned from the closed doors back to the guards as if the sound meant nothing, as if the room had not already shifted around him. "Escort him out," Richard said. The words carried across the lobby. Derek's hands froze above the keyboard. Maya looked toward the executive elevator panel, where a small light had begun to descend from the upper floors. Marcus saw it too. He did not move. One guard stepped closer. "Sir," the guard said quietly, "we need you to come with us." Marcus looked at him, then at the other guard. "I'll walk," he said. "Just be careful around my daughter." The first guard's expression changed. Not much. Enough. Zoe's arms tightened around Marcus's neck. Her stuffed bear was pressed against his chest, its worn ear folded beneath her fingers. "Daddy?" "It's okay," Marcus said softly. But the lobby no longer believed it was okay. No one spoke. No one even shifted in their seat. Guests, who had pretended to be absorbed in their own lives, were now fully watching. A man near the fireplace raised his phone just below shoulder height. A woman by the elevator angled hers toward the front desk without making it obvious. The businessman who had closed his laptop now had his camera open on the table beside his coffee. The phones were not theatrical. That made them worse. They were quiet records. Richard saw them and mistook their silence for obedience. "Thank you," he said coldly, as if the hotel had finally regained control. Derek did not look convinced. His eyes kept moving from Marcus to the phones, then to Richard, then back to the elevator display. Something in his face had lost its earlier certainty. He no longer looked like a clerk protected by policy. He looked like an employee beginning to understand that policy could become evidence. Maya stood near the concierge desk, still and pale. The executive elevator light stopped moving. The doors opened. A man in his late 50s stepped out before they had fully parted. Thomas Webb wore no name tag, no front desk smile, no practiced lobby polish. His suit jacket was unbuttoned, and he moved with the urgency of someone who had not come downstairs for a routine guest complaint. Richard opened his mouth immediately. "Mr. Webb, I was just handling—" Thomas walked past him. He did not slow. He did not ask what happened. He did not glance at Derek. He did not acknowledge the two security guards. The entire lobby saw it. Richard's sentence died unfinished. For the first time that night, his confidence faltered in public. Thomas's eyes had already found Marcus. Zoe lifted her head slightly from her father's shoulder, confused by the sudden change in the room. She looked from the guards to the elevator, then to the older man approaching them. Her small face carried the tired confusion of a child who knew adults had been unkind but did not understand why everyone now seemed afraid to breathe. Marcus stayed still. His silence had changed meaning. Earlier it had looked like restraint. Now it felt like authority waiting to be recognized. Thomas stopped several steps from him. The guards instinctively shifted back. No order had been given. They simply moved. Richard noticed and looked smaller for it. "Mr. Webb," Richard tried again, sharper this time. This guest was denied service and refused to leave the lobby after. Thomas raised one hand without looking back. Richard stopped. The gesture was small, almost polite. But it ended him. Every phone in the lobby remained steady. Derek swallowed hard. Maya lowered her eyes. Marcus adjusted Zoe gently in his arms. Thomas looked first at the child, then at Marcus's worn hoodie, then finally into Marcus's face. There was recognition there. Not surprise, not confusion. Recognition. He already knew exactly who Marcus was. That was the detail the room felt before it understood. Richard felt it too. His expression began to change from irritation to uncertainty, then from uncertainty to fear. Thomas took one final step forward. He stopped directly in front of Marcus. Then, in a voice clear enough for every guest, employee, and security guard to hear, he said, "Mr. Johnson." Thomas Webb's voice moved through the lobby with quiet precision. "Mr. Johnson." The name did not sound like a question. It sounded like recognition. Marcus gave him a small nod. "Thomas." Richard looked between them, trying to rearrange the scene quickly enough to survive it. Thomas's face was tight with controlled alarm. "I apologize for the delay," he said. "I came down as soon as I received your call." Richard stepped forward. "Mr. Webb, I should explain—" Thomas turned at last. The look he gave Richard was not loud. It did not need to be. Then he faced the lobby. "For anyone who is confused," Thomas said, "this is Marcus Johnson, founder and sole owner of the Johnson Meridian Hotel Group." The silence broke differently this time. Not with sound, with understanding. Derek's hand slipped from the keyboard. His face drained of color so quickly it looked almost painful. One of the security guards stepped back as if distance might erase his role in what had just happened. The other lowered his eyes. Several guests slowly lowered their phones. Maya stood perfectly still beside the concierge desk. Richard did not speak. He could not. Zoe lifted her head from Marcus's shoulder. "Daddy," she whispered, "do you know him?" Marcus softened immediately. "Yes, sweetheart." "Is this your hotel?" He held her closer. "It's one of them." Her small arms tightened around his neck. She did not understand ownership or corporate structure or why grown men in suits suddenly looked afraid. But she understood the room had changed. Richard forced himself to inhale. "Mr. Johnson, I didn't know." Marcus looked at him. Richard stopped, then tried again. "I didn't know who you were." Marcus nodded once. "That is exactly the point." The words landed harder than anger would have. Richard's mouth opened, but nothing useful came out. Marcus shifted Zoe's weight carefully before continuing. "A guest should not have to be recognized to be treated with dignity. A father holding his tired child should not need a title before your staff decides he belongs in the lobby." Derek looked down. Marcus's voice stayed level.
"No one at that desk asked whether my daughter was safe. No one asked whether we needed help. I was judged before a room search was ever made." Richard's expression twisted with panic. "Boss, I can fix this. I can arrange the best suite immediately." The word hung there. Boss. Every person in the lobby heard it. The reversal became undeniable. Richard, who had ordered Marcus removed minutes earlier, was now addressing him as the person above him. Marcus did not smile.
He did not enjoy it. That made the moment worse for Richard, not better. "This was never about the room," Marcus said. Richard swallowed. Marcus looked toward Derek, then back at Richard. The problem was the standard. Thomas stood beside Marcus now, silent but visibly furious. Derek finally spoke, his voice thin. "Sir, I made a judgment call." Marcus turned to him. "You did." Derek flinched. Marcus did not raise his voice. "And then your manager protected that judgment without checking the facts." Maya's eyes lowered. Marcus noticed her, but said nothing yet. Zoe leaned closer into her father's chest, sensing the weight in his voice, even if she could not follow every word. Marcus looked around the lobby once, at the guests, at the guards, at Derek, at Richard, at Thomas. Every clue from the night now stood in the open: the calm observation, the request for names, the official escalation, the short phone call, the executive elevator, Thomas's immediate recognition. Marcus had not been trapped. He had been watching his own company reveal itself. Richard's face had become pale and damp. "Mr. Johnson," he said carefully, "please allow me to correct this." Marcus held Zoe with one arm and rested his free hand gently against the back of her head. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he looked at Richard, at Derek, and finally at Maya. "Now," Marcus said, "we decide what happens next." Marcus looked at Richard for a long moment. The lobby waited with him. Then Marcus said, "Your employment ends tonight, effective immediately." Richard's face tightened, as if the words had struck him physically. "Mr. Johnson, please." "You ordered security to remove a guest holding a sleeping child after refusing to investigate a clear contradiction in service. You protected the failure instead of correcting it." Richard glanced toward Thomas, but Thomas did not help him. There was nothing left to argue. His authority had collapsed in front of the same room he had tried to control. Marcus turned to Derek. Derek stood behind the desk, pale and rigid, already expecting the same sentence. "You made the first choice," Marcus said. Derek swallowed. "Yes, sir." "You judged me before you helped me. Then you lied about availability." Derek's eyes dropped. "I'm sorry." "I believe you are now." The words were not cruel, but they offered no escape. "You are suspended from guest-facing duties effective immediately. If you remain with this company, you will complete retraining in service standards, bias, and escalation procedure. After that, someone other than Richard will decide whether you belong at a front desk." Derek nodded quickly, shaken but still standing. Marcus turned toward Maya. She looked startled. "You saw it," Marcus said. Maya's voice was quiet. "Yes, sir." "And you knew it was wrong?" Her eyes filled slightly.
"Yes. You didn't have the power to stop it tonight." Maya lowered her head. Marcus continued. "Starting tomorrow you will." She looked up. "I want you moved into guest experience oversight on an interim basis. Thomas will support the transition. Ethical judgment should not be trapped at the edge of the room." For the first time, the lobby's silence softened. Marcus then faced the staff and guests.
"This company's standard is simple. Every person receives dignity before they prove anything, not after they show wealth, not after they give a last name, not after someone recognizes them." Zoe stirred against him. "Daddy?" Marcus looked down immediately. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can we finally get a room? I'm tired." A small breath moved through the lobby. Not laughter exactly, relief. Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Yes, we can finally get a room." Months later, Marcus returned to the hotel without announcement. He wore another plain hoodie. Zoe walked beside him this time, holding the same stuffed bear by one worn paw. They stopped near the lobby entrance. Maya stood at the front desk, calm and confident, speaking to a tired family who had just walked in without a reservation. The father carried a sleeping toddler. The mother looked exhausted. Maya smiled gently. "We have a standard room available. Let's get you settled."
No judgment, no hesitation, no test. Zoe watched quietly. Then she looked up at Marcus. "Is that what the hotel is supposed to look like?" Marcus followed her gaze. The family received their key cards. The father whispered, "Thank you." Maya pointed them toward the elevators with warmth that asked for nothing first. Marcus smiled, but only a little. "Yes," he said, "that's what it's supposed to look like."
He and Zoe stood together in the lobby, unnoticed and unannounced, watching a tired family receive the welcome they had once been denied.